Welcome back to the Upside Sports Network. My name is Michael. Appreciate you guys joining us. A busy day around the world of baseball. But before we get into that anyway, just wanted to welcome you guys here to the Upside. We cover the NBA, NFL, NHL, and of course, Major League Baseball. Drop us a like and a follow if you haven't already. We really do appreciate it. Got quite a few of you guys already in here. Welcome back, Mark, Bryce, and Cheesy. Nice to see you, Morgan. Thank you guys for joining us. And yes, the Blue Jays did finally start do something anyway, but I want to start off the top with finally we see a big trade. Sean Murphy goes to the Atlanta Braves. The Brewers acquire William Contreras in a three-team deal that the A's do get a plethora of prospects back as well. Just a great overall trade, especially for the Braves. I just really like what they did here. Sure, they lose Wilson Contreras, but they already have a good backup catcher in-house. Sean Murphy, of course, takes over as their lead catcher now. I imagine this is probably their one big addition this offseason. It does lead me to believe that this is the replacement for Dansby Swanson, at least offensively in the lineup. I think they're going to try to roll with Vaughn Grissom. It seems like they've resigned themselves to losing Dansby Swanson in free agency. Seems like the Los Angeles Dodgers are actually kicking the tires on him now, while the Chicago Cubs are desperate for a shortstop this offseason. And if they don't land Carlos Correa, then we could see them landing Dansby Swanson. But Dansby Swanson just got married, and that's kind of why his market's been a little bit late to develop, because he's not exactly focusing on his free agency at the moment. He's got bigger things to worry about at the moment. When he gets back from his honeymoon, I'm sure that maybe he can just sign the contract via Teledoc or whatever, or one of those other document signing apps anyway. But his market's moving a little bit slower. That's why his free agency hasn't gone all the way through yet. But as far as the Braves situation, this solves their needs behind the plate. Sure, I would have liked to have had William Contreras and Murphy just for the long run, but that wasn't going to happen. They had to trade something in order to get something. Sean Murphy is a great all-around catcher, both defensively and offensively. Great all-around piece for them. The other pieces that they do lose in this, Freddie Tarnok and Kyle Mueller, a couple of good pitchers anyway that I've kept my eye on over the years, but they haven't really grasped on at the MLB level yet. Really haven't taken off the way I thought they would have so far. But again, good prospects for the A's to try to get something out of. The one team I am surprised on is the Milwaukee Brewers' involvement in this. Sure, they land their catcher. There was some. If you guys had paid attention before, I speculated that maybe in a trade that the Rangers could do is that they could take the money of Christian Yelich, at least some of it, and give them a catcher as far as a piece for them to use, because they were in need of a catcher. So the addition of William Contreras does help them in that respect. But as far as the trade itself, I've tried looking up a bunch of news on it. I haven't found the entire trade details in any full package yet. I think there's Esteury Ruiz is one of the pieces that they gave up, and they say Williams was another one, but I haven't seen who exactly that deal was for. Let me see if I can get that pulled up for you guys. I'm still not sure who they ended up trading. If you guys know in the comments, please let me know. I haven't seen any news as to who it is. Because I know they had to give up something bigger than Ruiz for the Brewers to be able to get a catcher like Contreras and that type of a deal. But for the A's, they get a great all-around package. Just looking at the trade itself for the A's, they get a couple of good pitchers anyway, Mueller and Tarno. Ruiz was one of them. And then, of course, they get kind of a grab bag full of other pieces. They also get Manny Pena as well. They also give up Joel Payamps. He ends up going to the Brewers in the deal. So Brewers kind of, again, reaggregating some of their talent here and getting a good catcher for the future. He does have significant time left on his deal. Was an all-star as well. But that's kind of where we wanted to start off the top. Second, for those of you who are Blue Jays fans, they do sign Chris Bassett. Chris Bassett, 3 years, $63 million deal, $21 million in average annual value. A little bit shorter of a deal than I thought that he would have signed. I thought surely with as much market interest as there has been in starting pitching, he assuredly would get 4 years. And I thought the Padres would be right in there. The Giants, now that they've missed out on a lot of targets so far this offseason, I thought they might turn their attention to him. They made the acquisition of Sean Manaea anyway, 2 years, $25 million, with an opt-out after the first year. And for the Toronto Blue Jays, that's a great signing for them. Really gives or lengthens out that lineup a little bit more with consistent production. One thing Chris Bassett was last year was consistent, and that's exactly what they needed, especially with a lot of underperforming pitchers in their rotation last year. This gives them a very good number 3 type pitcher in their lineup or in their rotation. And if they can get Jose Barrios back on track, if they get Hyun-Jin Ryu back in that starting rotation at some point, then of course they got their younger pieces like Mitch White that they can use. That rotation looks a lot healthier with Chris Bassett in there. Welcome back, Bryce. Doing pretty great. John, what are the Rangers going to do? And do you like T.Y. Hilton back to the Cowboys? T.Y. Hilton, I do like. They did kind of cool their jets on the OBJ thing just because it didn't look like he was going to be healthy. I still don't think OBJ is ultimately going to make an impact this year. I think the Cowboys end up circling back to him after this year. The signing of T.Y. Hilton does give them some depth, but I'm not really excited one way or the other about it. As far as what are the Rangers going to do, it sounds like they're focusing a lot right now on the trade market. A lot of rumors coming up over the past day or so from the Rangers beat reporters that they've turned their attention from the free agent field to the trade market. They've been in contact with the Arizona Diamondbacks about their outfielders. They're apparently looking for a controllable outfielder, and they have a plethora of them. We'll see who they end up getting, but they do need a left fielder out there, and getting one that's cost-controlled would be very important to this team that spent a ton of money in the last 2 off seasons. Also, it's crazy seeing these Tatis rumors to Yankees. I was hyped, but I could see a big move. Well, again, Tatis, I told you guys, I don't know, at the trade deadline, I guess, is when I first started talking about the ability of, or the availability of Fernando Tatis Jr. via trade. I still am not banking on a trade. Let me be clear about that. I still think it's below 1% that they do end up trading him. But I'm telling you, if they want to save a little bit of money, reinvest some of that money elsewhere, make a run at another free agent next year, reinvest their prospect pool and rebuild from there, go forward with what they've got, their roster is already pretty darn good. And Tatis Jr. will be able to bring in a pretty penny. Will he be able to bring in as big of a package as Soto? Not really. I mean, he does have all the money issues, the injury issues, the PED issues. Those are detractors for him. But look at that talent, the star ability there. Any team would be happy to have that piece to build around. One of your catchers will be gone for a lefty bat or one more or for more pitching in a day or two. I think that's a possibility. The Rangers do carry 3 catchers right now: Mitch Garver, Sam Huff, and Jonah Heim. I think there's a chance that they could bring in a catcher from the outside. If they do that, I think for sure they will move one of them. But I think they're happy with what they got as far as a mix right now. Mitch Garver is an injury waiting to happen, and if he can give you 80 games total this year, I think the Rangers would take that, with 40 of them being at DH. So I don't think they're going to move one of them, but I think they could move other pieces, back-end starters, 6th, 7th type starters, maybe some higher-end prospects that have aged out of the system, like an Ezekiel Duran, like a Josh Smith. Pieces like that could be moved. Consistent keyword with Barrios struggles. Yeah, Barrios is a very good pitcher. The one thing he struggled with, though, is the long ball. He's given up way too much hard contact over the past couple of years. His strikeout numbers are very good, though. I wonder if Jose Barrios just figures out, what he's doing wrong that's leading to these home runs. And if he gets that under control, he gets his ERA probably back down in the mid-3s, I'd have to imagine. And I think Toronto would be more than happy to have that as their number 4 spot in that rotation. Manaea to the Giants, underrated signing to me. Yes, it is. I don't think it should excite you, Bay Area fans. I just don't think it's that big of a deal, honestly, especially when you consider the big fish that they are hunting for. I mean, they're not bringing in Aaron Judge. It doesn't sound like they're going to bring in Carlos Rodon, even though they're still in the market for him. The Carlos Correa sweepstakes, they're going to have still competition for him from the Minnesota Twins, the Cubs, etc., and the Yankees, of course, but I'm not exactly thrilled about the Manaea signing. I do like that he goes back to the Bay Area. He did play for Oakland all those years. Maybe getting back to a comfortable setting will allow him to reestablish his market. And he did have a lot of success there in Oakland. So maybe, you dip back into that well. And if he performs, great. He hits the open market. You got 1 year of good production out of him. And you flip him for a qualifying offer, or a draft pick next year after you extend him a qualifying offer if things work out. Yankees preparing offer tonight into tomorrow morning for Rodon, by the way. Yes, they are. I'm wondering what's taking him so long, honestly. I mean, the longer he sits out there on the market, the more and more of these lower-level free agents go away, and he looks even more like a prize. And I think that price does nothing but keep going up. Every single day it keeps going out. For some reason, I think the Giants will re-sign Rodon. I'm not sure they will. I still think the Yankees are going to be right there. They're going to put a full court press on him, I think, at this point. They really need to improve that starting pitching, and the starting pitching market is pretty much devolved right now as far as the free agent market. Outside of Rodon, there's really nobody else out there right now who could really impact the rotation like a guy like Carlos Rodon. Now, of course, that they could go for a trade like a Pablo Lopez, but it sounds like 7 years is what it's going to take. Yes, Bryce, Rodon does want 7 years. What is your prediction where Correa signs? I say back with the Twins, but I'm not sure if Correa wants to go back. I'm not sure if he wants to go back either just because of how things ended. I think he was really happy with how the season began, but the Twins spent $30 million today bringing in Christian Vazquez, a very good catcher. They had a lot of turnover at catcher last year. They couldn't really find their solution. Gary Sanchez, Jeffers, etc. They've had some good catchers in there, but none of them have really, clung on to that role. So maybe Vazquez we'll be able to solidify that position for them. The pitching staff, though, is also a need for the Minnesota Twins. So if they don't bring in Correa, they're going to try to bring in a guy like Rodon. They're going to try to go the trade route. They've flirted with the idea of trading away Luis Rise for a top-flight ace-level pitcher. We'll see if they end up getting something like that done. Sean Mania is him. Danny Jansen might go, or Kirk. Danny Jansen could be the guy that goes out. I wonder if the Angels are the next team that acquires a catcher. They seem to be the one team out there that really needs to bring in a catcher right now. Maybe the Cubs could bring in somebody to fill the shoes of Contreras, but if I'm a team looking for a trade right now for a catcher, Danny Jansen's probably the best one out there on the market for sure. Now, if the Rangers were to put Jonah Heim out there, if they had acquired Sean Murphy in a trade, then he would have been the top option, but Mark, I would have probably traded Kirk, honestly, but it sounds like Jansen's more likely at this point. There are rumors out there that the Mets could go after Correa. That'd be a nightmare for me. Well, I mean, they're spending all they possibly can right now to win. And I mean, if you're a sports fan in general, if you're a fan of the Mets, you can't help but be fascinated with how they're building this team. I mean, you can only have so many players on the active roster. I mean, how many $20 million contracts does this guy want to hand out? At a certain point, we had issues with, the Steinbrenner baseball where every single year they get the top flight free agent out there. But he wasn't even playing at this level of money, even by his, relative wealth at that point in time, by the relative contracts that are being doled out. He wasn't going this far into the tax. And Cohen's going way above what Jordan Steinbrenner did back in his day. Even when you adjust for, the eras and all that, Cohen's just really blowing everybody else out of the water. And it's just, I just wonder how much higher he's really going to go. Right now, it doesn't seem like there's any limit on him, so I wouldn't say they're completely out on anything. Much like, the Yankees were never out on anything back in the day when George was at the top. But the Mets, we'll see how they end up fielding this team. Money buys a lot of good players, but we'll see how it works out. Well, we have at least a decent football team. Well, you did put a thumping on the Buccaneers anyway, Bay Area. Steve Cohen seems not to care about throwing all the cash out there. No, he does not. Last year, he spent all that money and still gained 7% to his net wealth, even with all the money he did spend on his baseball team. He is a hedge fund guy, so those guys make a lot of money. They lose a lot of money quickly, and he seems very set with what he wants to do, has a good vision for what the New York Mets should be doing. And while it might look like a lot in baseball terms, Steve Cohen is a very rich man. He's able to afford these things, and that's why Mets fans have got themselves a great owner. Now, do I think it's good for the game or good for the Mets long term? Remains to be seen. The other bit of news, the Guardians have made official the deal with Josh Bell, a 2-year deal with an opt-out after the first year. That is a very good deal for them, solidifies their first base need. Probably is their one big addition this offseason as well. I thought maybe they could go after a catcher. Danny Jansen, again, I just mentioned him, could ultimately go there as far as a trade candidate. But maybe they go into the free agent market and see if they can get a low-cost option to be a backup catcher there. But a great addition. It sounds like that they could still use at least some more power in that lineup. Maybe a power-hitting outfielder, low-cost out there on the free agent market could be of interest. Don't Red Sox and Guardians need catching as well? Guardians to a certain extent, but I don't think they're going to invest in anybody in this market right now. I don't think they're really going to give you any premium assets for those type of pieces. Red Sox, they say they're in the need for have a need for a catcher. I think they're going to dip their toe into the free agent market again, go for a low-cost guy, roll with Reese McGuire, and see if they can catch lightning in a bottle. I really liked Reese McGuire back when he was a Toronto Blue Jays prospect. Ended up with the White Sox for the past couple of years, was traded at the deadline to the Red Sox. I really liked his offensive potential anyway when he was coming up with the Blue Jays. Just think of how the Blue Jays have really had a talent for developing catching. They have Moreno, they have Jansen, they have Kirk all right now. They had Reese McGuire at one point. I think they traded away another top 10 minor league catcher in the past few years as well. So, if you need catching, you might want to check out what the Blue Jays have been doing in their minor leagues. Might want to, pay attention. By the way, is the Astros going to get legit powerhouse hitting catcher and center fielder, or is there all talk and no action? Possibly. I think they still want to roll with Maldonado right now, at least defensively. I think they still need to add an offensive-minded catcher at some point. Most of the big-name catchers are already off the board. There's not really a lot of good options left. Twins scooped up Christian Vasquez, who I thought would have been a great fit pretty much on any team. High-caliber character, good winning, brings a lot of winning culture to your team, and has certainly developed that bat over the years as well. And I thought that would have been a good compliment for Maldonado. In fact, I thought maybe we'd see Vasquez as the starter in front of Maldonado last year, but that didn't work out that way. And so he gets the 3-year, $10 million average annual value from the Twins. Good grab there by the Twins to solidify their spot behind the plate. If you guys didn't miss the video earlier today as well, we put out a video about the Brooklyn Nets, if you pay attention to basketball as well. John Collins, apparently there's a lot of rumors about him being traded sometime after the December 15th date anyway. That's the date that newly signed contracts can be traded. And it sounds like we might see some movement from the Atlanta Hawks as they try to free up some dollars. Put out some videos for you guys tomorrow about the Bassett signing. We also had the Sean Manaea signing on Sunday. We'll make some videos for you guys about that as well. Get back into some hockey for you guys and touch on some NFL stuff. Maybe go over how Brock Purdy has been doing for those of you who are Bay Area fans. Welcome back, everybody. Appreciate you joining us again, Jose, Willard, who's on first. Appreciate you coming back. Got 35 of you guys in the chat right now. Hit that subscribe button and the like. We really do appreciate those. Braves, of course, getting their catcher, Sean Murphy. Giving up a healthy amount of pieces, though, in return. Biggest piece, of course, William Contreras. It's a tall price to pay for the Braves. Of course, they didn't really have the top flight minor league prospects that they've had in the past. The last of those basically went last year to the A's in the trade for Matt Olson. So they had to get creative with how they were going to do it. Yankees hot stove is in 7 minutes, so up to you if you say anything interesting. Okay. The headline tonight right now reads for the Yankees anyway that they're preparing to make an offer, a formal offer at least, to Carlos Rodon as we get a spammer. We'll get that taken care of for you guys here in just a second. We have a very good moderator anyway. How many years of control does Murphy have? He has 3 years of control. 3 years of control. Contreras had 6. So we'll see how things work out for the Braves in the long run. Just think they had Shea Langeliers in their system. They gave him away for Matt Olson. Just think if they had found another way to, get that deal done without putting him in that deal. Langeliers is probably your starting catcher right now, along with Contreras. And then you flip one of those catchers for more assets. But they decided to go with Sean Murphy here. I guess it pays out of this world money, plus to be a big market, but it appears no matter what Houston does, they will never have a starter, powerhouse catcher, or center fielder. Well, I mean, they had one in George Springer, but they weren't willing to pay the type of money. I mean, the Blue Jays went out there and spent money that was a little bit above market, honestly, for him. And he has had some injuries here and there, don't get me wrong, but overall he's still an excellent player. And that was your center fielder of the future anyway. You'd have Tucker in right. You'd have Springer in center. And then Brantley, of course, last year was in left until the injury. I imagine they're still going to look to try to bring in another left fielder at some point. But it looks like you're going to go the cheaper route in center for at least the next couple of years. As far as catcher, again, They don't really have a powerhouse hitting catcher, but they try to, make the best out of the rotation. And Maldonado is a wizard behind the plate defensively. I think that's their one. They try to build up the middle defensively. They've done a great job of that, and then build out their offense with all the other positions. So we'll see if this strategy works for Houston. We did a live on Saturday for you guys about the Kodai Senga signing, 5 years, $75 million to the Mets. Mets are spending and spending and spending and spending and spending. I'm surprised they haven't made another signing while we've been talking. They're supposedly still interested in bringing in Adam Ottavino on a 1 or 2 year deal. Ottavino shooting for 2 years. Mets would prefer to keep it to 1. That AAV is probably going to be in the neighborhood of 8 to 10, maybe $12 million. So you're talking about a payroll that's going to be approaching $360-ish million before it's all said and done, and they're still looking to add pieces even beyond that. Now, if they bring in Carlos Correa, I mean, that just blows the lid off of what is possible for an owner to spend on a team. I mean, we're talking about changes to the CBA like we've never seen before. Those kinds of things where the league is going to really step in and say, hey, you guys wanted to not have a salary cap. We were worried about one owner really running away and trying to buy every single free agent, and now we have seen it. Steve Cohen, the cost wasn't the impediment. We're going to have to do something more drastic than what we've already done, whether that's increasing the tax rate from 90% at that level to 250%, something like that, or flat introducing a salary cap. The league is not going to take kindly to what Steve Cohen is doing, so expect changes in the next CBA. I still think that there will not be a salary cap, but we could see some very serious tax penalties being levied for anybody who goes to this extreme. I don't think anybody really thought they were going to go this high, but we're going to see some drastic changes to that level of the tax. You're gonna cancel this. I was booted from another chat for arguing incessantly that Correa is a better stick than Swanson. Who was taking the other side? Swanson himself? That's hilarious. Correa is by far the better hitter, and it's not close. I'll take solace that so far the past few years before Houston won a title again, that teams went all out to win World Series like the Nationals, and now basically suck, and the Braves don't suck, but like, all right, Willard. I get you're a Houston fan, but you gotta root for other teams as on the whole. I mean, you want baseball to be good. You don't want to be watch a snooze fest on every other channel just because you're a Houston Astros fan. If you're watching Sunday Night Baseball, the Astros are only in one game. There's still another 15 games on. You've got to have some parity in the league. In the next 2 years, which pitcher do you think might break the record for the highest contracts in terms of average annual value for a high-end starter? Easy question, Anthony. Just because he is a pitcher, technically, Shohei Ohtani is going to break 50, 5-0, 5-0. He is going to break 50 million in average annual value. There's some arguments out there that he could break 500 million. I think it's easily a $50 million AAV, though. Welcome back, Robert. Welcome back, Anthony. Yes, the other owners are probably really ticked at the Mets owners. Yes, they are, and they are not being shy about it. There's some. We'll talk about the NFL as well. There was some news from Jerry Jones anyway about possible 18-game schedule. But as far as owners in baseball, they're seeing Steve Cohen, spending with the tax rate at 90% right now for what they're spending, and they're not having it. That was supposed to be an impediment to keep lower budget teams around and still be competitive. And I get Steve Cohen, you can try to buy every single free agent. I get you have the money to be able to do it. But the whole point of having that tax level or that tax burden was to deter owners from doing this. Maybe they dip their toe in and get 5 or 10 million over that tax threshold, but not as far as Steve Cohen's taking it, and still may take it further. It doesn't sound like there's any limit to his spending right now, and I can't blame him. He's just doing what the rules allow him. But it's going to be considerably different next time the CBA comes around. That tax rate is going to jump precipitously. I would expect something so exorbitant like 250 percent tax on any dollar over that threshold right now. Some bobo who doesn't understand OPS. Okay, makes sense. Even if you don't understand OPS, just look at the two. One has a lot more power. One gets on base a whole lot more. Dan Swanson's a good player, but he's not an offensive juggernaut. Nationals before their Cinderella year, and then started losing players like Houston, but unlike Houston, they about blow money and win. Well, you got to remember that that the difference between Houston and Washington, Washington had a whole lot of older stars on their team that were hitting free agency. They had money already committed to their system. Houston, on the other hand, delved all the way down into the tank. The reason why they're so good right now is because they did one thing that pretty much every fan hates, is tanking. They want to see their teams compete, etc. That is a great way to build a team, but there's a reason why Major League Baseball is trying to deter that from happening, instituting the lottery, etc. So this doesn't happen again. So as far as Houston goes, just count your lucky stars that this wasn't around, say, 15 years ago. Then that lottery probably would not have landed, or that lottery would have resulted in you not having pieces like Bregman, Correa, etc., year after year after year, drafting in the top 1 or 2 every single year. That's part of the reason why Houston is still on their upswing, because they were able to build that way and still build even further beyond that, drafting really well. That's good on them for continuing to do that even into their successful years. But the Nationals, though, were at the end of their reign. Bryce Harper, of course, had to worry about his free agency. You had Strasburg's money coming up. Rendon was going to become a free agent. You had a lot of high-priced pieces that were going to hit free agency, and that team was not going to stay together. That's why they had to ultimately trade Juan Soto and kind of reset their clock. I think Ninemo didn't want to sign with the Jays because then he has to pay tax in Canada and U.S. Possibly, but I think he just wanted to go back to New York. And when you think about it, 8 years, 162 for Nimmo. I was thinking somewhere around 5 years just because of his age, etc. But that 8 years and the 162 at a $20 million average annual value plus anyway, just a great deal for Brendan Nimmo. I mean, that's a good deal. If I'm Brendan Nimmo, I take that deal too, whether or not the taxes are different, in Canada or not. The roster is even better than 21. Random stuff just keeps happening. Short baseball series, etc. Nax beating an all-time team in 19. Yeah. Let me clarify a person who's mainly a starter, not a two-way player like Ohtani. So if we take Ohtani out, who would be the next? Let me go back to your question real quick so I can get it right. In the next 2 years, what pitcher do you think might break the record for highest terms in average annual for a high-end starter? If I take Ohtani out, then it's going to be next year Max Scherzer. He's probably going to top his deal that he has right now, 43 plus million. He probably gets in the neighborhood of 45 and change, especially when you consider Ohtani's going to be in that same free agent class at 50. I think you're going to see Scherzer in that 45 range. Urias is going to be around that number as well. I'd imagine probably in the 35 to $40 million range. Now, if Urias really comes out of the gate strong and wins the Cy Young on the NL side, we could see some really big numbers for him as well. But Scherzer, I would expect to be the next one. Can the Padres lock up Juan Soto to a long-term extension right now after all the moves they made this offseason? Absolutely, Jose. I expected they would probably get it done before spring training actually began. I thought they'd try to take care of their business early on before winter meetings and then try to get that extension done at the winter meetings. I probably made that prediction probably around the trade deadline when they first acquired Juan Soto. They seem to be more patient in wanting to get other pieces into that team, bringing in Xander Bogaerts. I still think they're going to get the deal done, but I think it's now going to happen before spring training. Was great one season, but since then, all the bragging he did against Houston in the World Series since then hasn't taken a team back to the World Series. I mean, I'm not worried. I mean, they've done a great job. That's all that needs to be said. Does that tax money from Cohen go to low market teams like the A's? I believe that tax money is actually spread out to the other lower level paying teams like the Pirates, etc. Revenue sharing leeches, as Clay says. Bryce wasn't on the World Series team. Yeah, I was referring to that entire run of Nationals baseball. That era of Nationals teams. They were high-end pieces that were just aging out. Bryce had aged out, or had gotten to the free agency the year before, etc. And so that team was not going to stay together as constructed. Robles didn't hit, so the pieces that Houston has gotten to hit over the years, bringing up a Valdez, bringing up a Javier to take over in that rotation, Kyle Tucker supplementing that roster. The Nationals didn't really have that level of success in their minors. Juan Soto's the one big piece that they did get to hit on, but Victor Robles was supposed to be a significantly better player. He obviously landed on his face and could still become something, but as of right now is not. Welcome in, Tom. Welcome in, Michaels. Yankees need to make moves. What are they waiting for? I don't think they're waiting for anything. I think they're just being smart and measured in their approach. They want to get the right deal done. You think Fried will get more if he hits free agency? I agree. I think the Braves are going to try to do everything they can to keep him, though. I'm a really big fan of his numbers and the potential he has. The stuff he has is off the charts. Big game pitcher. Welcome back, Bush Girl. The Bay, I am waiting for the Giants to sign Carlos Correa. I don't know if it's going to happen for you. I mean, they seem to be, well, a bridesmaid this year for all the top free agents. Not a good, not a good thing to be, especially when you're trying to recruit big name players. They were close on Aaron Judge, don't get me wrong, but he just wanted to go back to New York. I think if they had made a really big offer, maybe they could pry his eye away from New York enough, but they weren't able to get it done. I think their one mistake they made was convincing their fan base that they had okay, I'll take that back, that they, how do I put this politely? That not only were they in there for Aaron Judge, that their offer was good, they made them believe that Aaron Judge was on the tipping point of coming to them. And then we got the news from John Heyman that made all of San Francisco Giants fans and New York fans absolutely lose it. And then, of course, the retraction. You're still excited about them possibly being able to get it done. We all thought maybe it was just a time frame thing that they hadn't informed the Giants yet and they hadn't dotted the I's and crossed the T's. And then ultimately for him to go back to the New York Yankees on a 9-year deal, not even a 10-year deal, but a 9-year deal, was a kind of a gut punch to Giants fans. I get your point, Willard, but I think they will address that in the next CBA talks. I guess they need a floor tax for teams that don't spend. Well, teams at the bottom are actually spending more than they ever have. I mean, at the very bottom of the league right now would probably be the Oakland A's. They don't have a lot of money committed, but even teams like the Tampa Bay Rays and Cleveland Guardians are up over $90 million in spending over the last couple of years. They haven't exactly been playing at that $50 million level. The Pirates also haven't invested a lot of money either. Now, would it be nice to see other teams get up to that $100 million payroll plus? Absolutely. And that's what the CBA is going to start to address as well. Fried has been better than Max over the past 3 years, and he's younger than 30. He's absolutely killing the open market. Yes, he is. But I just think Max Scherzer, because he's the old veteran pitcher, et cetera, as long as he's able to stay healthy, I think he's still going to be able to command that hefty of a salary as long as he stays effective. Now, if his stuff backs up, if he starts to get injured more, we could see a lower AAV and become more incentive-laden. But I think for Max Scherzer's absolutely going to crush that market next year. I think Juan Soto's contract extension will be something crazy like 16 for 500. That's not going to happen, Jose. If you guys have paid any attention to the Aaron Judge sweepstakes, the San Diego Padres, there were some rumors out there that their offer was going to be 14 years for $400 million. And the reason why Major League Baseball was going to crush that deal is because the only reason that they were going to do it was completely to circumvent the CBA rules as far as the luxury tax and try to circumvent, the AAV of that contract just to make that deal a lot more palatable from a tax perspective. That's why they were going to nix that deal. If they did something like this, 16 for 500, that again I think would be nixed. I think you're going to have to see something a lot more representative. Probably a 13-year deal, 10 to 13-year deal. That's going to ultimately be what happens. Do you think Sandy Alcantara might opt out of his current deal with the Marlins and go into free agency because he's going to look at the contract that Mad Max is going to get and think he's getting ripped off? I don't think he has an opt-out. I think Clay's right. I don't think he has an opt-out. But yeah, no Correa news as of yet. I mean, a lot of these players are, locking up these a lot of these teams that are struggling with finances or don't want to pay top-end free agent dollars are going what the Atlanta Braves route is and, signing Ronald Acuna, signing Ozzie Albies, getting these type of deals done so that when they do hit it big, sure, they're making a whole lot more money than what they would be making a whole lot more money on the open market had they waited, but they wanted that cost certainty. They wanted that security of that long-term contract, and that's what these teams are preying upon these, younger players in the league, saying, hey, you're playing great right now, but that's not to say that you won't get injured next year and you'll turn up like Joey Gallo at free agency where he's not going to get, that mega deal that he was hoping for. There's careers that go all the way up to free agency and think they're going to hit it big and don't, And that's what teams like the Marlins and other small market teams need to realize is that's their best way to keep these players. And Sandy Alcantara is locked up. Great job by them. Funny Yankees think they are getting Tatis. I don't think they are. I think there's a possibility of it being or of him being traded, but I don't think it's exactly the perfect fit for any of those teams out there unless they're willing to pay the piper, pay the piper, if you will. Preller wouldn't trade Tatis at his lowest value. Maybe, but I mean, Tatis Jr. still has immense value. He sure, of course, would have a lot more value should he come back and show that he's healthy and off of PEDs, show that he's good, show that he can still perform, show that he's gotten all those character concerns out of his system, etc. Then his value would be so much higher, but there's no need for Preller to trade him right now. I like what you said there, Clay. Padres are going to stick him in a corner of the outfield and get him a babysitter. That's hilarious. In terms of contracts, in terms of designated hitter position, what player do you think might become the highest paid DH in MLB history? Yordan Alvarez from the Houston Astros. Whenever he hits free agency, he is going to cash in. Now that's strictly DH. Now there's players out there who still play, the outfield that could play some DH as well. I mean, Bryce Harper, they have, pretty much all three outfield spots locked up right now. Bryce Harper is penciled in as their DH when he does return. I guess you could say that's the current high for a DH. But for actual legitimate designated hitters, Yordan Alvarez plays some left field, but his position is designated hitter. He's this era's Edgar Martinez at this point, except with a little bit more pop. But as we were talking about the CBT tax in baseball anyway, how that's going to be something that's addressed in the next collective bargaining agreement. Other owners in baseball are not going to allow one owner to completely run away and spend all this money just because he has it without some type of bigger penalty. We're going to see significant breaks being put on that from ever happening again. So go ahead, Steve Cohen, take advantage of it while you can. Good on you. Make your team as good as possible. But that's something that will be addressed. I told you guys that in football anyway, there was a little bit of news from Jerry Jones about an 18-game schedule. There's been rumors, of course, for the past year or so since they went to a 17-game schedule that this was ultimately their goal, to get a full 18-game schedule on the books. And it sounds like Jerry Jones is fully on board with that, taking away another preseason game, giving us legitimate football for a full 18 games. So we'll see if that ends up happening. But with Jerry Jones being one of the proponents for it now, I imagine this gets a lot more steam going forward. I think the league really would like to see it from a revenue standpoint. And at some point, the players are going to see it and say, hey, how much more revenue are we going to getting? Sign me up. Where do I need to sign? And that's what will end up happening. Once we win a World Series with Tatis, that's when we trade him. I don't know about that, Cobra. I think those things are not related at all. I think they're trying to win as much as possible. You saw both Fernando Sr. and Jr. play. Do they have the same amount of power at shortstop, or does Jr. have more power? Good question. I did see both of them play. I did watch Fernando Sr. hit 2 grand slams in the same inning on that St. Louis Cardinals team with Mark McGwire. As far as who has more pop, I'm not sure. The reason why I say that is because of the PED stuff. How much of that was, raw power that he was using? How much of that was the ringworm treatment? How much of that was the PEDs, etc.? And once he comes back from injury, we'll see who ends up having more power. But I think they're both very similar as far as, in my eyes, what I think Tatis will ultimately come down to. They'll be very similar as far as power. How much longer until spring training pitchers and catchers report? Usually end of January, beginning of February is when pitchers and catchers begin to report. Funny thing is they're still going to lose to the Braves and Phillies. The Padres? I don't know about that. I mean, they still have a great rotation. They've built up that bullpen. They've got a good roster. They added another star. I mean, the Braves are very good, but they didn't add another star. The Phillies are good. They did add another star and a good starter in that rotation. I think they're going to be right there. Oh, the Mets? Okay. You think the Mets are going to lose to the Braves and Phillies? I don't know. Phillies are going to have Bryce Harper back probably after the All-Star break, maybe into September. Braves, depending on how Vaughn Grissom adjusts to being a full-time shortstop, I think they're going to be just fine. I still worry about that back end of the bullpen. I do worry about Senga adjusting to North America's game. Um, Braves adding Sean Murphy at a catcher was a very good option or good addition for them. I don't know. For me, I think it's going to be very good. I think that division is going to be very good. It's too early to say who's going to win the division right now. I'd probably put all three of them right at the top and see how they fill out the rest of that bullpen. See if they bring in another third baseman or a DH. See if they go after Carlos Correa, for instance. But I do have worries about Senga in that rotation. I worry about the back end of the bullpen. I'd still say the Mets are still third in that division right now. Murphy, I do think, is a great catcher, top 5, obviously. I think he's right in that class. But to say he's a star, I don't know if he's necessarily a star at the, for catchers, sure, he's a star player. But is he a, aircraft carrier type player? I don't think so. Could he be at some point? Yes. But I don't picture him as a Buster Posey type player for the Atlanta Braves. I think they had, a really good catching tandem in the minor leagues last year with 2 years ago with Langeliers and Contreras. That should have been their future. If they were going to need a catcher at this point, they should have, thought a little bit further ahead than one season out. But again, that's the cost of doing business. You had to bring in Matt Olson. I'm sure they'd love to have kept Langeliers, but the whole reason Murphy's available is because they sent him to Oakland. Philly does need another starter. I agree. A's are moving to Vegas, which is why they have no one now. I believe they should move to Vegas. I think that stadium is disgusting. I think it's an eyesore. It's deplorable that Major League Baseball still allows that team to play in that stadium. I think it should be moved somewhere else temporarily until they get a full-time home somewhere else, allowing people to walk into that stadium with raw sewage for a full month every single year. Every single year we see raw sewage being, flying out and sitting around the big, large areas of the stands, and it's disgusting. They should not have a team with a stadium that bad. They need to be moved elsewhere. Welcome back, Dave. Appreciate you for joining us. If that's the case, why don't they do that with George Steinbrenner back in the mid-90s? Past repeats itself. George Steinbrenner never spent at this level above, the luxury tax, etc. Cohen's in a different class right now, all unto himself. I just want the Phillies to have a team set for 23. I do like the way the Phillies have built their team, but they do need to add another starting pitcher. They do need to add to that bullpen. But the Phillies are going to be very good. Murphy is under control for 3 years, exactly. Contreras was, 6 years of control? Langeliers, 6. Any offseason updates today? A few of them. Christian Vasquez goes to the Twins, 3 years, $30 million. Chris Bassett, 3 years, $63 million to the Blue Jays anyway. And then the 3-team trade, Murphy to Atlanta, Contreras to the Brewers, and a huge package of prospects to the A's. A bunch of MLB-ready talent as well in that deal, along with some flyers. Murphy trade would have been too rich for Cubs to make on their own. I agree. That's why we ultimately saw a 3-team deal. Atlanta, in order to get the deal done, had to include an all-star caliber player in his rookie season in William Contreras to get the deal done. That's why they ultimately got the trade done, just because they were able to add some more prospects from the Milwaukee Brewers system. I'm not sure if this is ever going to happen, but in the next CBA negotiations, I hope they implement a rule that forces teams to be competitive instead of purposefully tanking. They did do that a little bit in the last CBA. We'll see how it affects teams going forward. But this was the first year of the lottery. We're going to see some of the floor start to have an impact as well. But I think we're going to see these teams that are on the lower end of the payroll bump up their average just a little bit, which is what they wanted to have happen, but still allow the top end teams to go out there and spend on free agency if they want to, like a Steve Cohen. That's the one issue I'm going to worry about with the lottery being implemented, that teams are going to purposely tank to get to the top lottery pick like you see in the NBA. You're thinking about it the wrong direction, Anthony. Before, if you had the worst record, you were guaranteed the top pick. Now with the lottery, it's not a guaranteed option. So the incentive to lose is slightly less. Sure, You still see teams try to lose in the NBA, but they're not guaranteed the number one overall pick if they finish 0-82. Even if they finish 0-82, they still go to the lottery. Whereas in baseball, if you finished 0-162, you would have gotten the first pick guaranteed. Now with the lottery coming in, that should help avoid some of those issues. Welcome in, Tim. MLB needs to force the sell of the A's or move their team. A's got fleeced. I don't know if the A's got fleeced. I think they still added some nice pieces to their team. But the A's as a whole do need to move, period. That stadium is disgusting. There's rumors that the Pirates are going to extend O'Neal Cruz to an Acuna-type deal. Is he worth it? I mean, anybody of any talent right now on that Pirates roster is worth it. Now, what will it end up costing is the question. If he wants 10 years, $300 million, I don't know if he's worth that. But the Pirates need to do something to keep some talent there for the long term. They've done a good job as far as getting their next rise of prospects to come up at the same time. They're going to be here in the second half of this coming season and the first half of the following season. So the Brewers are ready for the next wave of contention. That's why they're bringing in some solid one-year type contracts, veterans who can lead this team and show them the right way of doing things and not the wrong way. And we'll see if they solve those issues. There's the National League is going to be fun to watch this coming year. Mets, wow, what a team now. They do have a great team, but I'm not sure they're still best in that division. I still worry about Senga and his adjustment to North American baseball. I worry about that bullpen. And again, the Braves are really good all over that diamond, and they didn't do it by spending $360 million. Contreras is interesting because he's probably not a catcher long term or DH. If ever Brewers win, if he is, yes, it is. Brewers did a nice job. They have to do interesting things like that to remain competitive. And of course, finances are going to be a problem for them in another year or so. So having cost certainty at that position, he is pre-arbitration eligible, which means that contract is a bare minimum. So good job for them getting Contreras in that deal. What is the best catcher left out there on the free agent market? Ooh, good question. Tucker Barnhart's going to be up there. Gary Sanchez. Probably Mike Zunino, but he was hurt last year with the Rays. So I'd say it's probably between Barnhart and Zunino as far as best catcher left on the free agent market. Teams taking money from other teams can only tank for so long before getting punished with the draft order. Exactly correct, Tim. If you win the top overall draft pick in one lottery, you're not going to be able to win the draft lottery the next year. If you move up in a draft, you're not going to be able to move up the following year. Those type of issues. Pirates catcher Tyler Heineman agreed to minor league deal. Okay. Brewers got better end of the deal. Again, I'm not sure what exactly they gave away as far as the total deal. I've seen a whole bunch of reports as far as what the other teams got. The only piece that I've seen that the Brewers are giving away is Ruiz, and that doesn't make sense. He's nowhere near the value of a Contreras. I see Williams in some of these tweets out there, but I can't find out what Williams, was traded. Devin Williams, the reliever? I doubt that. I mean, the Brewers are still trying to contend, but I still haven't seen the full Brewers end of the deal. Who's your favorite third base prospect in the 23 MLB draft? That's a combination of all 5 tools, or at least 4 of them. Dylan Cruz, probably. He's probably going to be the top pick as of right now, but again, we're before we even get to spring baseball. That's when we really see the draft boards really change, so he may not even be the top prospect on the board by the time the draft rolls around. A's did not get one top 100 prospect. Yeah, but they got so many pieces. They went for quantity over quality. Think back to the Rangers made the deal for Joey Gallo. They could have gotten, a top 5 prospect from somebody's system. Instead, they went for 4 pieces out of that deal for Joey Gallo. They got Ezekiel Duran, who went into their top 10 immediately. Josh Smith, who also went into their top 10 immediately. They got a starter in Glenn Otto, who ultimately finished the year as a starter with the Rangers and then came into spring training the next year as a starter option. He's still in the mix, by the way, to be a stopgap option right now. And then the final piece of the deal was lower level player. I can't remember his name, but he's a hitter. Trevor Hauver, that was the other player. But the Rangers went with more of a quality over quantity package, and that really seemed to work for the Rangers. Those are pieces now that could help build that team out further, because they have the ability to now trade Duran and Smith, they still hold on to Otto as kind of a depth option for their starting rotation anyway, and then they still have Hauver to kind of develop. So the A's are kind of doing that here with the Murphy deal. I'll take the Houston bullpen and starting staff and starting lineup against any team right now. Well, I mean, you did just win the World Series, so I'd hope you'd feel confident about that. Gary Sanchez might be the best free agent catcher left. Yeah, again, I would have it between Zunino and Barnhart. I would say Gary Sanchez will never, ever, 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 ever catch for a team I manage if I was managing a team, just because defensively he's a complete liability. He should be a DH or moved off of that catching spot. Too many pass balls. He drops the ball so often that framing just off the charts bad. Really going out on a limb there. 106 team win with a banner. I agree there, Clay. For you, what trade for prospects specifically do you like in the past 3 years that have both quality and quantity? We haven't really seen that too often. Well, obviously the Juan Soto deal, I mean, they got a whole bunch of quantity out of it because they were able to include Josh Bell in that. They got 6 pieces out of that Padre system. They basically rebuilt their entire farm system by trading away all of their big pieces that were left over from their championship team. They are going to be a good team in probably a year or two. I just wonder about the pieces they brought in, like Jaime Candelario from the Detroit Tigers, as guys that they're supposed to look up to kind of show them the right way to do things. I wouldn't have exactly gone that route. I think they should still try to add some pieces, but like the Carlos Santana signing for the Pirates, I love that signing way more for that franchise. That's why I worry about the long-term future of them, because they're bringing in the wrong guys, I think, to lead them into the future. I think if they had brought in a guy like Carlos Santana, maybe at a different position, somebody who can show them the right way to do things, how to prepare for games, those types of things, I would have been more happy with the Nationals offseason so far, but I really like the prospects that they brought in. Mackenzie Gore is going to be a force. That rotation is going to be very good. They have a couple of beasts at the top. Josiah Gray, I've kept my eyes on him since back when he was an A-ball for the Reds. He's a lights-out pitcher. He will be an ace, mark my words. What's left for the Rangers to contend? Wouldn't mind Conforto. For those of you wondering about the Rangers, as you guys know, I've followed the Rangers very closely. Right now, they are not looking at the free agent market for outfielders. They are looking to make a trade for one, and they have pieces to do it. They have been in negotiations with the Diamondbacks very recently. Other teams have outfielders available, but it sounds like they're looking to make a trade, not a signing, to solve their left field need. As a baseball fan, for you, who is the most disappointing 100-plus win team that did well in a regular season but got eliminated either in the first or second round of the playoffs? There's a lot of teams that have been disappointing in the past. I think back to the Seattle Mariners team back in 2001. That team looked unbelievably great. I was really excited about that franchise back when I was probably, 11 years old at the time. And I remember that team just having everything going the right way for them. I was a Rangers fan, and yet I'm still rooting for division rival Seattle Mariners. I mean, Jay Buhner, Edgar Martinez, Brett Boone, I think, may have been on that team or joined it thereafter in the next couple of years after that. That team was very good. Ichiro Suzuki was there. I want to say Aaron Seeley, a former Rangers pitcher, was one of my favorite players on that team. I just really liked the way that team was made up. I thought that team had a real chance to go all the way to the World Series, and ultimately it just didn't work out. And to me, that was the disappointing one. Last year, Jed Hoyer left money on the table, did not spend it. This year, Tom Ricketts told him to spend the money. If he doesn't and is too conservative, could you see Hoyer being released after 23? I mean, I could see Hoyer being replaced now. I mean, any free agent or any GM could. I just wonder, is he doing this because Tom Ricketts is telling him, to hold on to the money or to save the money for next year's free agency? Because the Cubs are not poised to win this season unless they make overhauled, transactions to solve that rotation, to solve their lineup issues, those kinds of things. That team is not ready to contend. Sure, they need to add pieces. They did a good job bringing in Tyone. They're asking him to do a little too much to be a number 2 in a rotation, but they do need to add another piece to that rotation first. Then they can really get out and go after, some of the top, flight free agents out there. I mean, it's Chicago. It's the Cubs. They're going to be out there. They're going to be in contention for any free agent they want to have. And I just don't think they're really that interested in spending this offseason. I wonder if they just want to incrementally get better. by the signing of Cody Bellinger. I don't think that's a great signing for them long term, but maybe it's a 1 year stopgap option for them. And if they catch lightning in a bottle, so be it. But who knows? What trade can you remember in terms of prospect turn had combination of both quality and contract, and where the team who got the prospects do well? I think back to the Phillies with Cole Hamels. They got a lot of top flight prospects anyway from the Texas Rangers. A lot of those prospects didn't end up panning out. Thompson didn't pan out. Alfaro took over as the catcher at that point, ended up being traded as part of the package for Real Muto. Ended up being moved on to the Padres and is now a free agent. That didn't work out either. Nick Williams was a part of that deal and never really latched on with the Phillies. Played for, I believe, played for like a half a year. Really didn't work out there either. They got a couple of depth options out of it, Alec Asher and Nick Pivetta. Pivetta actually stuck around in the big league roster for a while, but that trade really didn't work out for the Phillies, other than bringing in JT Realmuto by flipping Jorge Alfaro. I found it funny that the Rangers, the year they brought in Cole Hamels and made the trade for Jonathan Lucroy, etc., they had all those pieces that they sent out of their system ended up in the Miami Marlins system, Luis Brinson, etc. Clay mentions the Mark Teixeira trade. All four of those pieces were fantastic. Matt Harrison, Neftali Feliz, Elvis Andrus, Jared Saltamacchia all played time with the Texas Rangers. Best piece of those was probably Elvis Andrus. Kind of solidified the shortstop for them, spurred them on to a World Series. But there's a few other trades out there that I'm sure I'm not remembering. But the Mark Teixeira trade to the Atlanta Braves reshaped how GMs kind of viewed their own prospects. But the question I would ask the Mets, yes, Verlander's great pitcher, but while he was dominant, but on the field for the Mets, he also played a big role. A lot of his wins where the Mets don't have an infield like Houston. Okay. They still have a pretty good infield. I mean, they have McNeil, Alonso on one side. They have Lindor and possibly a free agent addition on the other. That infield is not bad at all. I mean, defensively, I have no problem with Lindor at short. He's still able to hold down the position. I don't think he's the best in the world at it, but I still think it's a proficient infield, and Verlander's not going to suffer because of the difference in the infield, that's for sure. Who is one of the prospects in the Ranger system that you wouldn't give up in a trade no matter how good the player? Good question. Jack Leiter, obviously. I wouldn't deal Kumar Rocker. I wouldn't deal Brock Porter. I wouldn't deal Evan Carter just because he seems to be taking off right now. Those would be the pieces I would not trade if I was the Rangers. Outside of that, you can talk to me about pretty much any of the others. I'm still not going to give them away, but those would be guys that I'm not discussing, not interested, not doing it, not doing a prospect for prospect trade. No, I'm holding on to my guys. Appreciate you guys joining us. If you guys are new to us here, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Join us here at the Upside. Cover the NFL, NBA, MLB, and the NHL. We'll make a bunch of videos for you guys tomorrow. Post those discussing the signing of Mania, Bassett, the trade of Murphy. Discuss the Milwaukee Brewers' options over the next couple of years with their free agency in 2024 looming large right now. With Adames, Burns, and Woodruff all hitting free agency then. That's influencing the trade market right now. Welcome in MVP. You know, it may sound crazy, but they're saying one team's trash is another team's treasure. Plus, Gary Sanchez has a great defense catcher like the one in Houston has to help his confidence back. It's not a confidence issue, though, for you, Willard, or for him, Willard. It's a strictly able to catch the ball issue for Gary Sanchez. I cannot tell you how many Yankee games I've watched just on national broadcasts. I'm not watching him every single day. There's a lot of baseball out there. But every single game, he drops, 6 or 7 balls. The Twins, more of the same every single time I saw him play. He's not a good defensive player. I just don't think if you're still trying to fit, a square peg into a round hole, at a certain point you have to realize, hey, they're a different shape. It's just not going to work. And at a certain point, you just have to realize defensively behind the plate, Gary Sanchez is not an option. I mean, I understand Maldonado could show him, the finer points of being a catcher, but at a certain point, you just have to make a catch, frame a pitch, those types of things, and he's just not good at that. And as far as throwing out base runners, and pass balls. He doesn't know how to block the ball and keep it in front of him. Maldonado can help him out with some of that, but that's asking a lot for a guy who's supposed to be, a ready-made catcher right now. And it's not like he's a young guy anymore. Gary Sanchez is 30 years old. You know, it's crazy. I read somewhere that before they signed Jacob DeGrom, they were looking at Shane Bieber, and the Twins were asking for either Brock Porter or Jack Leiter. Would you have done that? I think you're referring to Shane Gray, not Shane Bieber. And if you're referring to Shane Bieber, you're referring to the Guardians. But in either case, that's probably why the Rangers didn't do it. I mean, they did so much work to try to improve that rotation depth. Brock Porter and Jack Leiter, Kumar Rocker are going to be cornerstones of that rotation moving forward until they prove otherwise in the minor league system. And we haven't seen anything outside of poor performance for a short period of time for Leiter that would lead you to believe anything but that. Jack Leiter was a number 2 overall pick in the draft. The Texas Rangers are going to see what they have before they trade him. Period. I heard Murphy got traded and Velazquez signed. You mean Vazquez signed? Yes. Murphy got traded to the Braves. Wilson Contreras, the all-star catcher, rookie catcher, went from Atlanta to Milwaukee, while the A's got a whole bunch of prospects in return. Kind of more of a quantity type package for the A's. But to answer your question, no, I would not have done the trade. Oh, I forgot to add one more pitcher to that mix, Anthony. Owen White. I would not move Owen White either. He's been injured for the better part of 2 years. Really is coming on strong over the past year and is finding another gear right now in the minors. He looks to have ace-level stuff when he does actually come up to the majors, if he can continue to be this productive. He's been very good recently, and as long as he can stay healthy, the Rangers could really have something going forward. That rotation, they have a couple of guys who are going to be free agents after this year. Perez is going to hit free agent market again. Odorizzi's not going to be there. Depending on what they do as far as, Heaney, if he opts into another year of that contract. The Rangers got a lot of starting pitching depth right now, and that's something they haven't had in at least 7 years. In the last decade or two, what is the one high-end starter you wish baseball fans would talk more about? Just because the team he played for was horrible, but he was winning? Johan Santana, back when he was with the Twins, deserved a lot more pub, etc. But as far as a more recent pitcher, I don't know, a lot more. Baseball fans pay a lot more attention to numbers and statistics than they ever have been, and so baseball fans are pretty astute in figuring out which pitchers need the praise and which don't. I don't think there's any pitcher out there that's been completely slighted by baseball, and that's a credit to the way baseball's really grown. Especially, the way the numbers have really grown, shown us who's really good players, and not just the name and number on the back of the jersey or the name across the front of the jersey. It's more about what you actually do on the field more than ever before, and that's a great thing for baseball. Contreras was an all-star DH, big difference. Yeah, he was added as a DH, but he's still a catcher. I get what you're trying to say, Clay, that you ultimately figure he's going to be a DH, but Milwaukee is going to be using him as a catcher. They're going to see if they can make it work as a catcher, because that has so much more value for them long term. King Felix, I think everybody realized he was underappreciated in Seattle and has since gotten the correct pub. That's why I didn't mention King Felix. People don't talk enough about Alex Manoah because he's up north. True, but I still don't view him necessarily in the class of the elite starting pitchers right now. I think he's in that 10 to 20 range, not in that 1 to 10 range. Do you think Murphy will perform well in Atlanta? I do. I think he's going to be a perfect fit there. I think we might actually see them sign him to an extension to lock up his deal long term. Maybe that's part of the reason why they were comfortable giving up Contreras, because they were going to be able to get a deal done with Murphy long term. I'm going to see one Kevin Brown, even though he won a World Series with the Marlins, he doesn't get the respect he deserves. I agree. As a Rangers prospect, I wish the Rangers never had dealt him, never, ever, ever. And he ultimately went on to the Marlins, signed the big free agent deal with the Padres, spent some time with the Dodgers and Yankees. But Rangers probably have a much better chance, or would have had a much better pitching staff, period, if they had held on to Kevin Brown. Kind of changed the paradigm from wins. Yes, he did. Yeah, I think to your point, Clay, just the candidacy of Felix Hernandez, just how well he was pitching up there in the Northwest, Pacific Northwest anyway. He was absolutely dominant for an extended period of time. Um, Deserved a lot more credit, and because of his issues with his team not winning the game, etc., that really kind of pushed the numbers forward even more so than they ever had been. Advents of shows like Clubhouse Confidential, MLB Now, etc., or MLB Tonight, the MLB Network period, are showing a lot more love to those type of players. You can actually see, coast to coast baseball all day long during the season. You don't have to worry about just East Coast games, and then turning off the TV and just catching the box score at the end of the or in the morning on the newspaper, because you can actually watch some of the game live on your TV. You have two other ones, Al Leiter and Livan Hernandez. Loved both of those pitchers. I remember at the twilight of his career when the Rangers were still pushing for a postseason. They were trying to beat the Yankees in the first round of the playoffs for like three out of 4 years anyway, 96, 98, and 99, and just couldn't get out of the first round because they kept coming up against the Yankees. They didn't have the starting pitching to match the Yankees, of course, and that was part of their issue. I was really hoping at that time they would have brought in a guy like Al Leiter. He would have really helped that rotation, because that rotation was, to say struggling, was a little bit of an understatement. They were certainly an offense-first team. Livan Hernandez pitched a very long time, very durable pitcher, never got the correct pub. A lot of guys, he kind of reminds me a lot of a Mark Burley type pitcher. Constant, consistent performance. Never much variation in that performance either. One thing you do have to admit, sometimes the bright lights of New York can ruin confidence of certain players who normally have some. Very true. That's why New York is not for everybody. Do you consider Dontrelle Willis overrated or underrated? No, I consider him a little bit overrated, honestly. I think D-Train could have had a much better career if he had toned down some of his eccentricities on the mound, etc. He tried to make a go of it, I want to say at the very end of his career with a whole bunch of other teams, and it just never really worked. I want to say the Rockies at one point had him, but I remember the trade of Miguel Cabrera and D-Train to the Tigers kind of propelled them going forward, but D-Train was very good for a very short period of time, and just as, not necessarily Dennis Rodman type personality, but very outgoing personality on the mound kind of came through, and yeah. So I consider him a little bit overrated because I think everybody kind of made a little too much of what he was to that team. I think Beckett was the better player, obviously. Good night up north. I'll be back tomorrow. Jays acquire Ohtani for a bottle of maple syrup. If they do that, that'd be the steal of a lifetime. Alrighty, appreciate you guys joining us tonight. We'll have a bunch of news for you, new videos coming out for you guys tomorrow. Tomorrow begins our new phase here at the Upside Sports Network. We're going to have a whole bunch of different videos coming out for you guys. When I say a whole bunch, I'm talking about 5 or 6. Get you guys updated on what's going to happen. But remember how before we got monetized last week anyway, I put out a whole bunch of short videos. We'll keep you guys updated, 1-minute little short videos. We're going to switch that up a little bit. We're still going to have short videos and that kind of thing. We're still going to have those short 15-second little blurbs if something big happens and then go live afterward. But we're going to try to give you a little bit more in-depth content anyway. So we're going to try to give you about a 3 to 5 minute video on some of the bigger transactions of the day. So for instance, the trade for Sean Murphy, just going over the particulars of the deal is going to take a full minute. And then we're going to try to go into the in-depth aspects of every single bit of it. So, for instance, why the Brewers did this trade, why the Braves did this trade, what the heck are the A's looking for in the package of players they get back. So keep your eyes peeled for those type of videos coming forward that are going to be coming out over the next few days. And I just want to thank you guys for making this a possibility. We do finally get monetized. I think I made a full $1. $1. Woohoo, $1 so far, but eventually, as I get more, content out there for you guys, we can, get this thing going, and I can do this thing full time for you guys. Thank you, Mark. Appreciate that. But gonna try to make a little bit better content for you guys now that we are to that level. You guys did, the first part, getting us to the 1,000 subscribers. Now I told you guys I was gonna get you guys some better content, and that's exactly what I'm gonna do. You'll be noticing a little bit of change as far as that goes, as far as trying to get you a little bit better information. Are you ever going to like a day in the life of Upside Sports? No, probably not. most of my day is spent doing a lot of research before I'd come on and do videos. I can't tell you how many ring lights I have because I don't like half the ring lights out there. Because watch the camera angle, watch my glasses. See that? I can't stand that. So I'm trying to look into some actual umbrella type lights, and I don't exactly have room for those, but I'll have to look into getting something like that so that that doesn't happen. But we'll be looking to improve our methods around here. Appreciate you guys, subscribing and joining our community over the past, I don't know, year and 2 weeks now, I suppose we've been in business. So appreciate you guys. Even though I know back in '93 the Cowboys were world beaters, but just like Joe Montana find when it took one last great playoff performance to beat that defense, but because of the sacks he took in. Huh? Not sure what you're trying to say, Willard. I guess what you're trying to say is that, great players might have one last mighty punch in them. I guess that's what the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are kind of focusing on right now. That at least get him to the playoffs, and then Tom Brady might give you a puncher's chance to get out of the first round. They're going to play the Dallas Cowboys, and even though they beat the Cowboys on opening night, this is a different Cowboys team. That defense is still fantastic, and their running game is finally getting going. They are missing some big pieces now. We'll put out some videos about that. The Cowboys have lost a starting cornerback and a right tackle for the year now in back-to-back games. They're starting to drop due to injuries, and they are bringing back Tyron Smith, so that's a great boon for that offensive line. Just as they lose Terrence Steele, they bring back Tyron Smith. Tyron Smith probably slides in there as the left tackle. They probably move Tyler Smith to guard and maybe put Jason Peters over there on the other side, but Cowboys are starting to look a little thinner now due to injury. Were you shocked by the Lions winning Sunday? Absolutely not. I am a Vikings fan, don't get me wrong, but the Lions are a very good offense. The Minnesota Vikings, though, their defense is absolutely terrible. Even considering the numbers their offense is putting up, they're an all-time bad defense. They do have a good pass rush, and now they're getting Cam Dantzler back, so they should be improved. But I'm not shocked by the Detroit Lions pulling off the upset. Do you think Brock Purdy could be a full-time starter? If so, what would he have to prove to get the spot for the rest of the year? I think he could be the full-time starter there just because Kyle Shanahan wants to have his type of quarterback play. Now, does that mean Brock Purdy is his guy? Maybe, maybe not. I just think he wants a specific style of quarterback at that spot. Basically, if a quarterback has these type of intangibles, doesn't turn over the ball, can make the right play, can make the occasional big play, that's what he wants out of his quarterback. He doesn't want to worry about a dynamic quarterback ad-libbing back there like Aaron Rodgers, who has all kinds of arm talent, or a Lamar Jackson who can run around all over the place and then complete a 5-yard dump-off pass to a running back and then live to play another day. He wants consistent, quick-moving, motion offenses that get you 5-6 yards on first down, get you another 4 yards on a quick run up the middle to 3rd and 1. Then you do a quick out route again, and then occasionally when the defense starts to sink in, then you just throw it over the top. He's a very good offensive mind, and Brock Purdy could be the option full-time there for the 49ers. Save money there. They still have Trey Lance. Jimmy Garoppolo could be back next year, of course, if they decide to bring him back, but I think Purdy really has a chance to solidify his role on that team going forward. Going back to Dontrell Willis, I admit he's kind of overrated, but if you take his wacky mechanics from him, he would become like every other starter all at the time, pretty much. Do you think Desmond Ridder could get the starting spot the rest of the year? I think he should be the starter the rest of the year in Atlanta. You can now put the Yankees Correa Tatis rumors done. David Cohn said they should have done Correa last season, and that they have to give it to the prospects with Tatis. It was not discussed. Okay. Well, I mean, they basically told us for, a year now that they're trying to go with the younger route with Peraza, Cabrera, and Volpe. We'll see who ends up getting the job full time, but they need young position players at certain spots to save some money. They're not going to be like the New York Mets and spend $360 million plus on their roster. At this point, I'm beginning to wonder if the Mets reached $400 million in payroll before tax. You think he's the full-time starter next year for Ritter? I don't think so. I think they'll try to do the draft and develop route again for the Atlanta Falcons if they are able to land the quarterback that they want in the draft. That's what's happening now with the Dolphins with Tua. That he's very limited on what you can do with the Mike McDaniel offense. I mean, the Mike McDaniel offense is very good. I mean, just look at that offense, the way they run it. I mean, they have dynamic playmakers outside. They have good running backs. They have a good tight end, Gesicki. Their offensive line isn't terrible, and he's basically been given the keys to that kingdom. And we saw the dynamic plays that he had earlier in the season when he could play free and easy, didn't have to worry about production. Now with the pressure mounting, playoffs coming about, we'll see how he does in the playoffs. But so far over the last couple of games, he's come up really small in big games. What's the latest on Rodon and Correa? The Yankees are set to make a formal offer to Rodon. Correa is still in a little bit of limbo as to where he might go. Didn't see too many rumors on him. I am sad. Same team all over again. I'm done. Well, if they bring in Rodon, I'm not sure it's the same team for the Yankees. We'll see if they're able to, add some more pieces to that rotation. They're still said to be interested in an outfielder. They could move some of their middle infielders to clear up some roster spots. So all is not done in New York. They're going to make some more additions. How do you feel about the Mets, or if the Mets get Correa? I think that would be a difference-making piece for them because it is Carlos Correa. You'd probably put him over there at third, I guess. Have I seen any real legitimate, storyline saying this is something that, they're really trying to shoot for? Not really. Nothing that's really, catching my eye at least. It's just that the Mets keep spending money, and if the market comes down enough for Carlos Correa, I guess anything's possible. But they're looking for other improvements as well. Back of the bullpen, DH, third base. But I'd imagine if they get Correa, then they're probably going to be right up there with the Braves and Phillies at the top of the division. I still don't think they win the division. I think they're going to be right there, though. I don't think they're the clear favorite. But we'll see how things go. I do think the Twins, Cubs, and Giants are most interested in Correa, though. I agree with that one. Twins are said to have a 1-year offer on the table, standing offer, a 6-year standing offer, an 8-year standing offer, and a 10-year standing offer. So the Twins are certainly keen on him, on bringing him back. I don't think they're going to be able to bring in Carlos Rodon. It sounds like they're going to try to bring in Carlos Correa, and if the market for Rodon is certainly moving faster than Correa, Correa is still their top option on the board. I wonder if they end up bringing him back. They did bring in Christian Vazquez. That doesn't really move the needle as far as guaranteed playoff team next year, but it does improve them. They still need to add a top of the rotation starter, and I don't think they're going to be able to afford both Rodon and Correa. Who wins the NL East next year? Too early to tell. Each team has too many different options to try to solve issues on their roster right now. Phillies need to add another stick to their bat, or excuse me, not another stick, another pitcher to their rotation. They need to add to their back end of the bullpen. Mets need to add another DH or third baseman, and then they need to add a middle reliever like an Adam Ottavino, 7th, 8th inning guy. They've done good bringing in Brooks Raley in a trade already. They've done some good things, but they still have more to do. The Braves still have to worry about the Dansby Swanson thing. They could use some other improvements as well, and they might be a team that buys a free agent in February that can contribute to their team. Say they lose Dansby Swanson, they take the savings from not signing him, bringing in somebody on a 1-year deal. Take an opportunity out there on the market. We'll see. Bassett was their most solid starting pitcher. I'd say he's probably the most consistent pitcher they had last year. I think he'll be fantastic in Toronto. 3 years is a great year, or a great term anyway, for the Blue Jays. I know he wanted 4 years, and I thought he would have gotten it with the spending spree teams are having. A little bit surprised that the AAV wasn't a little bit higher, but even more so surprised that it wasn't a 4-year deal. I thought for sure he would have gotten a 4-year contract. But he should do very well north of the border. Appreciate you guys joining us tonight. As I said, we'll have some content coming out for you guys tomorrow morning. Thank you guys for joining us here tonight. If you have any questions, feel free to send them in the comment section on any of our videos. Check out the video we posted today, and we'll have some more of that coming out for you. Welcome in, Robert. Just saw your comment. Do you think the San Francisco Giants will sign either Rodon or Correa? I think they have the money to. The question is, will they, have the wherewithal to do it, or they just keep all of that money dry for next offseason to try to bring in Otani, Urias, rob the Dodgers completely, and send them back into, the third place team in the division? That's a tough ask, especially when you consider they ended up as the bridesmaid to, Judge, etc. Maybe they add some pieces to get the ball rolling in the right direction, like bringing back a Rodon, bringing in a Correa, but I wouldn't say they're the favorites for either of those players, but I think they're in the top 2 or 3 choices for both of those options. Rodon, I think, will probably go to the Yankees at this point. I'd probably put it at like a 51% chance he goes to New York and 49 he goes elsewhere. There's a video that surfaced of him actually at the 2014 draft singing the Yankee songs, etc. During his draft video, so that's why everybody out there thinks he's going to New York. I just think that the fit there is absolutely mandatory for the New York Yankees to sign a starting pitcher, and Rodon's the only one of impact left on the free agent market. If the Mets would, if you were the Mets, would you prefer Adam Duvall or Michael Conforto? Duvall, 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 Duvall. I'm not sure Michael Conforto will be a productive MLB player again. His injury issues really worry me, and until I see him on a baseball field, I'm not giving him any big contract. Adam Duvall, he has had his own injury issues, but I feel more secure in what he can do, even when when he comes back from injury. I'll put it that way. But thank you guys for joining us tonight. As I said, if you have questions about anything around Major League Baseball, the NFL, the NBA, the NHL, please feel free to send us a comment. We do get those comments on our other videos as well. We appreciate all the new subscribers we've gained. If you're new here to the Upside, hit that subscribe button. We'll keep you guys updated on the MLB, NBA, NFL, and the NHL. And drop a like on the video. Thank you guys for joining us tonight. And we'll be back tomorrow with our daily update video live for you guys tomorrow night as well. Probably start that one a little bit earlier, probably in the 8-ish hour. So we'll see you guys tomorrow evening.